You know, if you're writing code, designing software, or really using any kind of digital media, you are dealing with the world of copyright every single day. You might not even realize it. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the rules, the rights, and the realities of copyright law. Think of this as your essential guide to protecting your own work and, just as importantly, respecting the work of others.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Here's our game plan for today. We're going to start by talking about how copyright fits in with other ways to protect your ideas. Then we'll get into the real nuts and bolts of what it is, what it gives you, and where the lines are drawn. After that, we'll bust some really common myths and finish up by looking at the big picture, how this all works internationally.
All right, first things first, we need to set the stage. It's super important to get that copyright is just one tool in a much bigger intellectual property toolbox. And to really get what copyright does, we first have to see how it's different from something else you've probably heard about, confidential information.
So this is the crucial difference right here. It's all about the idea versus the expression of that idea. On the left, you've got confidential information. This protects the idea itself, say a secret algorithm or your business plan. But you need some kind of agreement, like an NDA. Now, copyright on the right is totally different. It's automatic, and it doesn't protect the idea, it protects the way you've expressed it. It's not the concept for your software, it's the actual lines of code you wrote.
Okay, so now that we've drawn that line in the sand, let's dive into the main event. We're going to explore what copyright actually is and how it gives you this really powerful automatic shield for your work the second you bring it into the world.
What's so interesting here is the specific wording. See that phrase, fixed in a medium? That's the magic switch. Copyright doesn't care about the brilliant idea floating around in your head. It kicks in the moment that idea becomes tangible. The code you save to a file, the words you type in a document, the photo you snap. It has to be real and recorded somewhere.
And the range of what copyright covers is just huge. I mean, it's everything from movies to music. But for us, the real key takeaway is right there at the top, under literary works. The law officially sees computer programs and even the design documents you make beforehand as literary works. So yeah, in the eyes of copyright law, your code is basically a novel.
And get this, the protection lasts for a really, really long time. It's not just for a few years. It covers the entire life of the person who created it, plus another 50 years after they're gone. For software, that means code being written today will still be protected way into the next century. That's a huge deal when you think about legacy systems and the future of open source projects.
This right here is one of the most powerful and most misunderstood things about copyright. You don't have to fill out a form. You don't have to send anything to a government office. The instant you create something original and save it, the very second you hit save on that code, bam, you own the copyright. It is literally that simple.
Okay, so you have this automatic copyright. Great, but what does that actually get you? Let's break down the bundle of exclusive rights it hands you as a creator, and on the flip side, what it means for someone to step over the line and infringe on those rights.
As the owner, you get this whole package of exclusive rights, kind of like a legal toolkit. You and only you have the right to make copies, to create new things based on your original work. Those are called derivative works, like a sequel to a program. To sell or give away copies, and to show it off in public. You're in the driver's seat.
So, infringement is pretty straightforward then. It's when anybody else does one of those things from your toolkit without your permission. And it doesn't matter if they copy the whole thing or just a substantial part. It covers everything from making a photocopy to uploading your code to GitHub without your say-so.
This collage is a perfect visual for what a derivative work is. Someone has taken a bunch of existing photos, all with their own copyrights, and has rearranged them to create something new. But because this new piece is built entirely from those original works, creating it without getting permission first is likely a copyright infringement. All right, now for the giant exception to the rule. Because copyright isn't totally absolute. There are times when you can use copyrighted stuff without asking. This is all governed by a pretty complex but absolutely critical idea, and understanding it is essential for anyone who creates or uses content.
The million-dollar question, right? And the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It comes down to a legal concept called fair use. Now, don't think of it as a loophole. It's more like a flexible balancing test that's designed to protect free speech by letting people use material in limited ways for things like commentary, criticism, news reporting, and teaching.
So to figure out if a use is fair, a court doesn't just check a box. It has to weigh these four big factors together. First, why are you using it?
for a nonprofit class or to make money? Second, what kind of work is it? Is it super creative or more factual? Third, how much did you use? And fourth, and this one's a biggie, does your use hurt the original creator's ability to sell their own work? No single factor decides the whole case.
Let's make this real with a classic case study. Imagine a teacher showing a whole movie in a film class. How does this stack up? Well, factor 1, the purpose is educational. That leans toward fair use. But factor 2, it's a creative movie, which leans against it. Factor 3, they're showing the whole thing, which also leans against fair use. But then look at factor 4. The effect on the market is basically zero since it's a private class and they're not selling tickets. A court would balance all of this and would almost certainly say, yep, that's fair use.
The internet, for all its wonders, has been an absolute breeding ground for bad information about copyright. So it's time to play a little Mythbusters and tackle some of the most common ideas that can land creators and developers in a world of trouble.
Oh, this one. You hear it all the time, and it is completely 100% fundamentally wrong. It's honestly probably the single most dangerous copyright myth out there.
Here's the reality. Just because something is easy to access doesn't mean it's free to take. The moment someone posts their photo, their article, or their code online, it is still fully protected by their copyright. Putting something on the internet is just publishing it. It doesn't strip away the creator's rights. Okay, here's another classic trap. You're searching for an image for your website, you find the perfect one, and there's no little C in a circle, no all rights reserved text. You figure you're in the clear.
But as we've already covered, that protection is automatic. A copyright notice is a nice reminder, but it hasn't actually been required by law in most places for decades. So here's the bottom line, the most important rule to remember. Always, always assume a work is copyrighted unless there is an explicit license that tells you otherwise. All right, one last piece of the puzzle. Copyright wouldn't be all that useful if your code was only protected in your own country. So let's take a quick look at the major international agreements that make this whole system work on a global scale.
This all really started way back in 1886 with something called the Berne Convention. It set up the basic idea that if you create something in one member country, it's protected in all the other member countries too. Fast forward about a century, and the TRIPS agreement brought those rules into the digital age. It made them mandatory for all World Trade Organization members, and, super importantly, it spelled out that computer programs must be protected as literary works everywhere.
And that leaves us right here, on the cutting edge of copyright law. Everything we've talked about today was designed with human creators in mind. But now, as generative AI starts writing code, creating stunning images, and writing text, it throws a giant wrench into things. It forces us to ask a really fundamental question. If a human didn't create it, can it even have a copyright? That is the massive legal and philosophical challenge that we are all going to have to figure out.